Always a delight, Glenn. Thank you so much. Wow. I have really grown to love the Bible, because every single story in it is so rich, and every time I read it, I have a new understanding of how it can be applied in my life and how it applies to all of our lives. In Genesis 19, there is a story you're probably familiar with, and I'll just remind you of it. There's a bit of a situation going on in Genesis 19. There's a city called Sodom and Gomorrah. Yeah, some people know about it. It's the drug, sex, and rock and roll city. I think it's where the prodigal son went and spent all his money. And in fact, this may be where the phrase, "we're in a lot of trouble," comes from, I think. So this is what happened. Early one morning, two angels, would that get your attention? If you woke up first thing in the morning, there are a couple angels just sitting there yeah. So there were two angels, and they said to Lot, "Arise, take your wife and your two daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city." There was a cause and effect taking place, and he was being told by the still small voice times two to take off. Something was going to come down, and he wasn't supposed to be there for that. He's supposed to take his wife, take his daughters, take that affectional part of himself, go. But Lot didn't go. He lingered. And so some very caring friends came, and they literally did an intervention. They grabbed him and grabbed them and threw them out of the city, saying, "Flee for your life. Do not look back or stop anywhere." What'd they say? Do not look back or stop anywhere in the valley. Flee to the hills, lift your consciousness, lest you be consumed. So the whole family took off. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. It's a fairly extreme example, I suppose. We haven't actually become pillars of salt, but what she did was she chose her lot in life. She was stuck in her ways. How's that one? No, really, she just couldn't go forward. She turned. And because of this, she was crystallized. She was only focusing on what had been or what could have been. Whoops. I know you and I have done that to say, needless to say, she represents the part of you and the part of me that is not yet ready, not quite willing to move forward on our journey. It's not a wrong, it's not a right. It has certain results. This could have been the perfect time for her to use her intestinal fortitude, right? To avoid the temptation to go back into her past and use that faculty, that ability that God gave her called the power of release. We are on week 10 of Faith Will Power Us. Faith, will, imagination, love, life, power, order, wisdom, enthusiasm, release, understanding, and strength. All these gifts that we have been given so that we can, through all the different avenues of our life, come back to the kingdom, put God first in our lives. The story of Lot's wife is what happens when you and I don't listen to the inner guidance that comes to us. Whether it comes in the form of angels, it comes to us through telephone calls, emails, our friends, our family, little tiny people, big people, animals, nature. However it comes to us, we have that inner guidance coming. But instead, we're caught in this place of lamenting what has been, wishing for a better past, pining away, perhaps too long, grieving too long, getting attached to what has been. And so we're not present. And we have to be present to be in the kingdom. The kingdom of God is within us, here at hand. So I looked in the revealing word to see what it says about the power of release. Some of you know that when I made up this acronym, I changed some of the names that the Filmores had originally given to the powers. So I looked in my trusty revealing word, I looked under release, and the word release isn't even in here. No. So I went to another word that I knew that they had used, the power of elimination. And elimination says, C, renunciation. Whoa. So now it's getting deeper. And so I looked up renunciation, which is in here, and it says, letting go old thoughts in order that new thoughts may find a place in our consciousness. That's what Lot was being asked to do, to flee to the hills. Move through the valley, and while you're in the valley of the shadow of death, don't buy any land, don't put up a tent, don't build condos there, keep going because you're going home. Climb up in your consciousness, go into the hills, go up into the mountains. That's what Jesus did every time he prayed. In Unity, we have a catchphrase for this, and it is, let go and let God. You feel that? It's not just let go and then who am I? It's let go and let God. And it's great if we do it willingly. It's wonderful. It's easy to let go when you're just easy to let go. And there are those times when we're not willing to let go, and one of our friends or some of our family or perhaps somebody who appears as an enemy picks us up, grabs us, and gets us out of that space. They give us a boost, a leg up in that time. But the truth is, we're here so that we can change. We are here. You were made for this. To be born again, time and time and time again, in any place where there's any fear, to be born again to love. Where there's any hatred, to be born again to peace. Where there is any injustice, to bring justice to that moment in time. And life is meant to circulate, so that's why we're here, to do that. I'd like everybody who would like to stay stuck to please raise your hand. Right? Just know that we're here to move forward. As you can imagine, the center of release, elimination, renunciation, is the deep part, the lowest part of our abdomen. And the color is often seen as brown, and it's also seen as russet. We have all kinds of versions of russet, so we got a lot of releasing going on today. Yeah. The disciple, though, that represents this power is also a Judas or Jude. He went by the name Thaddeus, though, more than we know him as Judas. He also went by Lebbaeus. He's hardly ever mentioned in the New Testament, but it is thought that he was the author of the epistle Jude. Jude is a tiny, short, little epistle, that means letter, is a little epistle right before the book of Revelation. So it comes at the end of the New Testament, right before we get all these really, wow, visions. And then we hear that what has to happen is the old world has to pass away so that we can step into the new world. So we can step into the New Testament of our own lives. Our new thoughts, let them supersede. Let the Christ sense of you supersede anything that has ever been less than that in your life. So he is credited in Jude as being the author of an instruction for us to sort out and release whatever's no longer needed in our lives. This is like the last exit, before you get off 75. You're just about to get to Revelation, and it's like, okay, this is a good time to get off right now. Let it go. Let it go right now, because you're about to step into a whole new world. And so in these 25 verses, what happens is we are warned against false values, against holding up things in our lives that we feel like we might not be held accountable for. It calls us to be responsible. It reminds us to not be troublemakers in our own lives or in the lives of others, grumblers, malcontents, and boasters. It reminds us to just hold our counsel and to be aware of those aspects of you and others that have a tendency or a temptation to act like that when it seems like something's going wrong. That part of us that makes trouble for us. Let it go. Just let it go. because you're about to step into a whole new way. And that is usually when it comes up. It'll come up right in that moment so that you can make your yes, yes, and your no, no. I would remind you, we heard something at a convention that said that no is a complete sentence. Let's say that together. No is a complete sentence. It doesn't have to be done with anger. It can be done with clarity. It can actually be done with joy. No, thank God that's not my temptation anymore. The first step, though, is always to seek the kingdom. Always to first connect with God. Just even if it's one tiny little breath, just connect with the divine of you. And then with the power of release, elimination, renunciation, we use that beautiful duet that the Filmores brought to our teachings, denials and affirmations. After connecting with God, we deny. Denial is from the Latin negare, and it means to refuse. The de is not an of in this particular case. The de is an intensity, a strong way of saying refuse. We say, oh, come on, no way, Jose. That part of you that goes, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not going there with you. Hold the space. Love when someone is being unloving. Be your Christ itself. And once you deny, then, this has no power over me whatsoever, then you simply affirm the truth. It's actually, it's been called a broom prayer. We just kind of clean out the old, right, and bring in the new. It takes courage. And it takes honesty with ourselves about what it is that we're creating with our lives, what we're causing in other people's lives, and when we recognize it's time to let go. It is always amazing. Always. It's grace, God's grace. I had the privilege and joy and honor, really, of doing a big wedding last night at the Ritz. Where was I? The Ritz. Yeah, I was. The Ritz-Carlton, thank you. I don't hang out there a lot. So thank you. I'm going to now, though. I know what the back rooms of the Ritz look like. It's a beautiful place. It was gorgeous. The reason I was asked to do the wedding, though, is because Reverend Richard Levy, whose family lives here in Naples, had taken on bone cancer. Reverend Richard Levy I've known for years and years and years. And he's, sort of known as the surfer boy of the Unity movement. He had this long shock of, highlighted hair, and he's just a wonderful guy. I got to spend a lot of time with his wife Maureen in India when I was studying at Oneness University with 54 New Thought ministers, just a year ago. And so Richard asked his niece, who was getting married, Christina, to call me. And he said, there's nobody else I'd rather have do the wedding than Diane. I don't know if I'll be there. Richard passed last month, but he was there. This is what happened. Maureen, his wife, now I have been wordsmithing with Christina. I've been wordsmithing the service and the exact words that we were going to use for almost 2 months now. She's a very precise woman, and she and Brian knew exactly what they wanted, and we had it down to a T. Maureen emailed me just this past week, saying, Diane, I know you're doing Christina's wedding. I'm not going to be able to be there for the wedding. Would you be willing to incorporate something that Richard used to do in his services? Just pick something. I'll send you some of his services, and you can pick something, and if you just put it in there, you don't have to tell them that you're doing it. You could just do that and maybe mention it afterwards. I went in, took a shower, and prayed. And I got absolutely not. There is no way I'm going to throw something in to their service that they have not said they want in the service. This is something that it's their day. I can't do that. No. But before I replied to Maureen, I thought, you know what? I at least ought to see what Richard would have done. So I opened the email and I clicked on all 4 attachments. They went into my downloads. I went to my downloads and I opened all 4 attachments. And there was nothing written in any of the attachments. They looked like this. It was a field of white, just a field of love, just a field of unconditional caring. I felt that from Richard in that moment. So I wrote Maureen back and I said, "Oh, Maureen, you know I love you. You know I love Richard." But I really got that I wasn't able to do that because, as you know Christina, so you know she was wordsmithing that service. And I couldn't possibly put something in there, but I did want to see what Richard would have said, or what Richard wanted me to say. So I opened the attachments, and there was not a word in any of them. So yes, Maureen, I'll be a representative of pure, white, unconditional love on Richard's behalf as I marry his niece. Thank you, God. Do you see how cool that is? I mean, come on. Are you kidding me? They were I even went back to see what kind of documents they were. I thought, well, maybe my Apple won't open this kind of document. They were DocX's. Where we think there isn't a way, there is always a way. And we pray, we sing a version of the Lord's Prayer here. It's spoken in almost all Judaic Christian communities. Those who look to Christ's consciousness within themselves to be responsible beings, to love one another, to love our enemies, to pray for those who persecute us. Unimaginable things. But in the King James Version of the Lord's Prayer, it says this: "Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors." There's an immediacy to this prayer. It means the moment as I forgive, the moment you and I let go, the moment we let go, then an entire field of unconditional love, divine light is unleashed, a power beyond you and beyond me. And it may not look like it makes any sense at all. But that's how good God is. As we free ourselves from this kind of bondage we have of holding ourselves and others wrong, of kvetching about things, automatically we free ourselves and others. And I'm talking about niggly little things. Things that we don't think, little pet peeves that you may have, or grudges, or a feeling that someone's against you, or you're against someone, or you're being done onto. I don't know if they say this word in Naples, but in Chicago when I was growing up, it was yuckadoodle. The yuckadoodle that we hold, And just lay it down. It's one of the reasons I love pencils. You love pencils that have erasers? Move forward. In the book, More Power to You, Charles Roth says this: "So, clear out the garbage of unforgiveness of yourself and to others that is expressing unpleasant conditions in your life. And you can do it with this affirmation: from the bottom of my heart and my soul, I forgive myself and every person or condition that I pronounced guilty of wrongdoing." Now, this power that Thaddeus represents, Thaddeus of us, Thaddeus of you, works best when you do it immediately. It keeps things clean and fresh in your life, your body, your mind, and your soul, just to let it go and keep it going. Nourish yourself and let it go. And sometimes it can be very deep, sometimes it can be tough. Wynn has come up to me twice now and shared something. He's here in the congregation today. He shared something with me. He wants so much for me to know. I want you to know. The last words that Steve Jobs spoke, the last word he spoke before he left his body, and what kind of release is that? And we're all going up to that release. His last word was, "Wow." Wow. This "I release and I let go" is from Agape International. Reverend Michael Beckwith and Ricky Byers Beckwith wrote that song. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life. And when I do, my heart is open wide. So to release doesn't mean to pretend that something didn't happen. To release isn't a fake thing at all, to let go. It's not Pollyanna. It's not a I feel so good about everything kind of thing. Not at all. It means that you, beloved, have the inner capacity to let go anything that is not expressing the highest aspect of you with the God of your being. Charles Filmore, Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. Therefore, it is very necessary that the eliminative faculty be quickened in one, and a right balance between giving and receiving, letting go and laying hold be established. So let's you and I go first to the kingdom. Eliminate the negative, accentuate the positive, and don't hang around with Mr. In-Between. God bless you.